The Criminal Courts of Justice, Dublin, Thursday, November 28th, 2019. After a 9-day trial, a case never before seen in Ireland comes to a conclusion.
A couple have been found guilty of female genital mutilation of their 1-year-old daughter 3 years ago in what is the first trial of its kind in this country.
6 weeks later, the married couple are back in court for sentencing.
Described the offence as the most egregious breach of trust by those presumed to be the protectors of their infant child.
Today, Judge Elma Sheehan sentenced the male accused to 5.5 years imprisonment and the female accused to 4 years and 9 months.
The couple are taken from the court and brought to prisons in different parts of the country to begin their sentences. They cannot believe what is happening.
The sentencing has been welcomed by advocacy groups and international aid organisations, highlighting the dangers of FGM. Fiona O'Malley.
The following morning, the detective Garda chief superintendent who led this investigation into the act of FGM, as it's commonly known, gives an interview on RTE radio.
It's an exceptionally complex crime to investigate. It's very, very much in the shadows, very, very much, behind closed doors. So it's a really, really difficult crime to prosecute.
Throughout the investigation, trial and sentencing, the couple maintained their innocence at all times.
A 37-year-old man and 27-year-old woman had pleaded not guilty to procuring an act of FGM at an address in Dublin.
Over 5 years on from those headlines, the couple still say they never harmed their daughter. They say the Irish state put them in prison and removed their children from them, when none of that should have happened.
The couple are from an African country but cannot be named to protect the identity of the child, who is now
We know
5
this
years
because we've been recording with this couple and the many people who've worked on their case.
The transcripts of the trial, it just looked like gibberish.
And we've done this so that we, and you, can try to understand just exactly what happened. How was this girl injured? Why were her parents charged, convicted and jailed? And why, even now, do this couple find themselves still fighting against the state as they try to clear their names?
It's a crime under 2012 criminal legislation. This is the first case of its kind in this country, and this is the first time anybody...
From RTE Documentary on One and RTE Investigates, my name is Ruth Naga, and this is First Conviction. Episode 1. The Incident. To begin, we're going back to the early hours of a Friday morning in a Dublin suburb in September 2016.
The baby was waking up in the middle of the night. My wife was breastfeeding her.
This is Saeed, not his real name, because we have to protect the identities of the family in this story.
We had a time frame that every 3 hours I had to wake her up to breastfeed the baby.
That's not his voice either. It's an actor. But these are his real words.
And I was managing our older one, whatever she needed.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Friday, the 16th of September.
Dublin is a bit chaotic that morning, with many people having to find alternative ways to get where they're going.
The headlines. There is further travel disruption for commuters today as staff at Dublin Bus stage another day of industrial action.
We woke up as normal, as a family.
This is Saeed's wife, who we're calling Halawa. Again, not her real voice, but these are her real words.
I had the baby, so I told my husband to cook breakfast. He went into the kitchen and was cooking eggs, I think, and fixing the kitchen.
This is a day that will forever change this family's life.
And I was also rushing to go to the Friday prayer. I had to rush quickly to do whatever Mama asked me to help her.
Right now, it's coming up to 11 a.m. and this young Muslim family are in their one-bedroom apartment on the south side of Dublin with their 2 children, a 7-week-old baby and a 21-month-old daughter who's still in nappies. You'll begin to notice Halawa and her husband Saeed like to refer to each other as Mama and Daddy.
Mama was in the bathroom with the baby.
And he called me. I was breastfeeding the small one.
21-month-old Aisha, not her real name, needs her nappy changed.
And he said to me, I think Aisha has pooped. And he said, I want to wash her. But I said, no, I'm going to do that. You continue cooking the breakfast.
Saeed brings Aisha towards the bathroom so Halawa can get her cleaned and change her nappy.
I get a nappy and I have a wipe. Before I washed her, I cleaned her with the wipe. And I took her to the shower to clean her. And afterwards I said, go out now.
My daughter came out from the toilet. She came in behind my back. I saw her without her nappy. I had a small toy, a ball with lights. When you squeeze it, it made a noise and lit up. I showed her the ball. She was afraid of the ball. I turned my back as she ran away. I thought she will run to her mama. I turned away and then I heard her crying.
And this is the point where an absolutely normal morning for this family begins to change. Something happens to make little Aisha cry.
I turn back and pick her up. I put her to my heart to calm her. I say, maybe she hit against the door or whatever. She hasn't started walking properly yet.
I was washing my hands and I hear after a minute, 1 minute, I heard crying sounds. I came out of the toilet. Before I got there, I said, what happened? He said, she fell down. When I came into the kitchen, I saw her daddy hold her up. When I look down, I see a dot. I think 1 dot or 2 dots of blood.
Then Halawa told me, there is a drop of blood on my trousers. A drop of blood on the floor. I was shocked.
Aisha is beginning to bleed and is upset. She's hurt herself in some way. And there's some blood coming from between her legs. But it's hard to figure out from exactly where.
I took her from Daddy. I put her in the shower again. I washed her and I checked her. I put her in the small sitting room we had and I checked. I didn't see any blood or anything.
We thought maybe there might be blood inside. She's a child. She can't say if it is painful. It could be very dangerous. We cannot keep her at home. We can't see the injury.
Saeed and Halawa are unsure how Aisha has injured herself. They believe she's fallen on a nearby toy which injured her, but they're not really focused on that right now. They just want to get a doctor to see her.
And I said, let's go to the hospital and let's check her. I said, let's take the car.
We grab whatever we have and get in the car. I can't even take a bottle of milk. We put the 2 children in the back, me in the front, Mama driving. I was in a panic.
It's only a few minutes' drive from their home to the hospital.
And I said to Daddy, okay, I'm going to look after the small one. You go into the hospital and stay there and wait for me.
Halawa goes back home and waits for any news. Saeed carries 21-month-old Aisha into accident and emergency at Crumlin Children's Hospital. Hospital records show she is admitted at 11:57 a.m. on Friday, September the 16th, 2016.
The nurse welcomed us. I sat down there.
If you've ever been to a children's hospital emergency room, they're usually busy with staff doing their jobs and parents with their children doing very little. Chatting and trying to keep the kids occupied until the next call comes from a nurse or doctor. But little Aisha was well able to keep herself occupied.
If you watch the CCTV, when we brought her to the hospital, you can see her moving from chair to chair. She wasn't crying, nothing. Everything was normal.
CCTV shows Aisha having fun, playing peekaboo, dancing around at times. She likes dancing.
And my daughter was walking from chair to chair. I had to protect her so she didn't fall down. She was taking off her shoes, playing as usual, like a normal child of her age. We didn't get any excessive attention. Nothing. A woman was sitting in the corner. We had a chat, and my daughter was talking to her.
Saeed and his daughter are taken to an examination room.
A nurse examined her first, then a doctor. She told me she doesn't have anything wrong with her. You can bring her back home. But I said no. I am not sure. I insisted to her that maybe it's something inside.
Pam Fraher and Tim Desmond are part of the team working across both this podcast series and the RTE Investigates TV doc that follows.
As part of this investigation, we've contacted lots of those involved in this story, asking a series of questions.
One of the questions we asked Crumlin Children's Hospital was whether Saeed was told Aisha could go home that Friday afternoon. But they told us
Children's Health Ireland is unable to comment on individual cases due to patient confidentiality.
Hospital records show that when Aisha arrived at hospital, she had a significant ooze of blood coming from her injury, which was brought under control with pressure dressings. Saeed rings home to his wife, Halawa, to keep her updated on the situation.
I got a call from my husband. He said that he had met a nurse and the doctor, and they said she's okay. She doesn't have anything wrong. They said you can leave the hospital. I said, but we don't know what happened.
It's now early Friday afternoon, and Saeed is still speaking with hospital staff.
I was worried. I said it's the weekend. There will be no medical help available to examine her. Could you please examine my daughter internally? My daughter was still in the waiting area, playing as usual. No one was checking her temperature. We were having a good time.
At some point that afternoon, a decision is made to call in a surgeon to examine Aisha's wound. The surgeon arrives at 5 p.m, just as Aisha is being wheeled into theatre. He will later state that at that point, the wound was fresh and the bleeding from her injury was brisk. And with that type of blood loss, Aisha could go into shock within 6 to 10 hours.
They give her some drops to put her to sleep. It was anesthetic. They brought her to the theatre and they examined her there.
During the examination, the surgeon carries out a cauterization, a medical procedure which uses heat to stop whatever bleeding is happening. Once the procedure is completed, Saeed is told about what happened. He's keeping notes in his native French because English is not his first language.
I took notes in French. They told me there is an injury to her genital area, but she doesn't need any stitches. What I understood at that time, because they use a medical term, was that it was not life-threatening. They don't need stitches inside.
After Aisha's procedure, Saeed is asked about what brought him to the hospital.
They came to me and they asked me what happened to my daughter.
So he tells the surgeon and his colleagues what happened. That they weren't fully sure how the injury occurred. Maybe Aisha fell on a toy, and that their only concern was their daughter's well-being.
I told him whatever I told the nurse the first time and the doctor who saw her before. I told him everything.
Saeed is struggling a little with his English, but he is able to get his message across to the doctor.
He took a record of the story and what happened to her, and they told me she was not going to be going out of the hospital. She will be staying, and they will see how things go.
Saeed phones home to tell his wife Halawa that Aisha is being kept in for observation.
He talked with them, and they said they wanted her to stay Saturday and Sunday.
Saeed is given a mattress, and Aisha gets a bed in a room. It's now Friday evening in Dublin City.
She had a urine tube that was tied to her leg. We had to look after that carefully. She was playing normally, dancing with a group of visitors. She was really dancing. She would not stay in the room.
Saeed stays and sleeps in the hospital with Aisha.
We didn't see anyone on Saturday. We didn't see anyone on Sunday.
And his wife stays mostly at home.
I have my small little baby in the house. My sister and my niece stayed with me. Things were okay until the Monday.
Monday, September 19th, 2016. That was the day when Halawa and Saeed became aware that things were changing. But a process had already kicked in over the weekend.
So we've been looking through the procedures when a child gets admitted to an Irish hospital.
Pam and Tim again.
And somebody raises a concern about an injury.
Shane Dunphy is a child protection expert who has worked as a child and social care worker in Ireland for more than 15 years. He still practices on a consultancy basis. Shane has that inside knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes when hospital staff raise concerns about an injury to a child.
Medical staff would treat whatever the injury is. If they have some suspicion during that treatment that this injury could not have occurred in the way that the parents and the child maybe are reporting that it did, if they feel that there's no way that this is accidental, this must have been something that was caused on purpose, they then have the responsibility under the Children First Act to contact the designated liaison person for child protection in the hospital. This is usually a medical social worker, and they then initiate the child protection protocols. It would usually happen pretty quickly, within hours of the child being admitted to the accident and emergency room.
What all this means is that staff have raised concerns around what's termed a non-accidental injury.
Which in turn means staff are legally required to raise their concerns.
And the process Shane Dunphy has just spoken about is kicking into action behind the scenes.
Saeed and his wife Halawa have no idea any of this is happening. They know nothing about Irish hospitals and childcare protection policies. Why would they? They assume their daughter Aisha will be cleared to go home on Monday, and family life could go back to normal.
On Monday, we got the first shock. Early in the morning, a doctor came. She told me she worked in child safety. She asked me what happened to my daughter. She recorded what I said, and she went.
Senior hospital staff, the surgeon who performed the procedure on Aisha, a paediatrician who also had a role in child protection, and another surgeon carry out an examination of Aisha. They're using a colposcope, a specialised magnifying instrument used to examine the cervix, vagina and vulva for abnormalities, and they're video recording everything they're doing.
They ask me what happened to my daughter.
Halawa arrives at Crumlin Hospital that Monday morning and is spoken to by staff.
And I said what happened, but that I didn't see what happened exactly. I told them the whole story. The person who talked to me was from Tusla.
By now, the designated liaison person for child protection within the hospital has sent a file outlining their concerns to Tusla, the state's child and family agency. A process Shane Dunphy knows well.
Tusla social workers will then basically assess the file. They'll look at the file and say, is this a child protection concern? And if it is, they will then come in and take the lead on the child protection element of the case, while the hospital medical team will continue taking the lead on the medical care.
The rest of the day moves slowly. Meetings are happening behind the scenes. But it's not until the following day, Tuesday, that Saeed and Halawa are called to a meeting with hospital staff.
Later on, they came back as a team. 2 surgeons I knew, somebody from Tusla. They all came.
They came to meet me with all the group of people. I was there as well.
There are a lot of people at this meeting, including the consultants who examined Aisha and a social worker from the hospital.
They started bombarding us with questions, saying we don't believe the story of the injury to our daughter. They were not as friendly as when we saw them on Friday.
Saeed feels things have changed, but the fact is hospital staff don't believe the story about how Aisha received her injury. Halawa remembers that at one stage they were asked if they could provide a true account of what happened.
The story you are telling us and what happened, the little girl is not a match. Can you change the story and tell us something different? We said, Excuse me, how can we change the story? I'm a bit shocked and I don't know.
Hospital staff had earlier mentioned to Halawa they believed her daughter Aisha was deliberately injured.
Before we went into the room, they talked to me alone and they said, "We know something happened to your daughter." What's happened? I'm never thinking in my life I'm going to hear FGM. Never in my life.
By now, the Tuzla social worker had been in the hospital for several hours. Shane Dunphy.
Their job is primarily to gather information. So they will speak to hospital staff, they'll look at medical notes, get injury descriptions, look at the explanations that the parents would have given. Tuzla will then apply a harm and risk analysis. So what they do here is they will look at the nature of the injury, its severity, its location, whether it's consistent with the explanation given or not.
The Tuzla officer was the woman who mentioned the first time clearly the term female genital mutilation.
Now, things have gone far beyond the control of Saeed and Halawa. They're getting really nervous and worried.
Pam and Tim again.
They're outside their comfort zone for sure, not least because English isn't the first language for either of them. They don't speak it at home. And back in 2016, they only had broken English.
Sometime over those first few days in hospital, when Saeed goes back home, he gets the toy that they feel might have caused the injury to Aisha, and then they bring the toy into the hospital to show everyone. So this is like a small plastic dashboard of a car, little steering wheel and a wing mirror. There's no sharp edges on it, so it doesn't obviously look like it would have caused a cut. But maybe the trauma of falling on it could have caused the bleeding.
The thing is, hospital staff don't believe this story of the toy causing the injury. And by now, they've already formed a different view.
They told me something was cut from our daughter. Something is missing. They were using medical terms.
And those medical terms relate to FGM, female genital mutilation. A brutal act where the external genitals of a female, usually a child, are cut or removed from their body, often for so-called cultural reasons. It's painful, unnecessary, and illegal in most of the world. In Ireland, it's a serious crime and you can receive up to a 14-year jail sentence if found guilty of an act of FGM, which is what Saeed and Halawa are now suspected of.
We said, "What is missing?" "Nothing is missing." They asked me, "Did you check? Did you see?" I said, "Yes, I checked her. Nothing is cut." They said, "No. Someone took a knife, a sharp knife. They took it and cut something."
Halawa understands what FGM means in a way most of us never will. As a child in East Africa, she had FGM carried out on her. And this is something she told Tim and Pam about.
In our interviews with Halawa, she told us about her experience of FGM and she spoke about how she would openly be against it.
That she didn't believe in it, and that it was just one of many reasons she emigrated from Africa, arrived to Ireland as a teenager, and she was very open with hospital staff at the time about this.
Halawa had been living in Ireland for almost a decade when she brought her daughter Aisha to Crumlin Children's Hospital.
Saeed and Halawa actually met and fell in love here in Ireland. They're both from countries in East Africa. Saeed had been here longer than Halawa.
When all of this was initially happening back in 2016, Halawa was 24 years old. She was an Irish citizen by then. Both of her daughters had been born in Dublin, and they were also Irish citizens. Her husband Saeed was older, 10 years older actually, so he was 34 at the time. They had been married a few years, and Saeed was actually fighting a deportation order to stay in Ireland.
By that Monday afternoon, a series of child protection procedures are in place at the hospital. And an email is sent to Gardaí outlining how hospital staff suspect Aisha could be a victim of FGM. For the next few days, Aisha is kept in hospital with her father Saeed by her side.
I was in the hospital. Most of the time I was treated by people very well, kindly. But sometimes the staff didn't notice that I see them. Their face is changing, like whenever they are reading something in front of them. and I see how they react.
Halawa and Saeed are adamant that whatever happened to Aisha wasn't FGM. They believe their little girl had fallen on a toy which caused her to bleed, but they could sense that no one really believed them.
They were doing their duty as medical people. But what I don't forget is the room they put us in front of where the nurses are. It's what they call an observation room. I learned that afterwards how my daughter and me were interacting was being reported every morning.
Aisha was showing no signs of pain at this stage.
She was not even getting paracetamol. My daughter was not getting any medication.
No medication, no nothing.
Not only is Aisha under observation, there are also restrictions on her movements.
We can't take our daughter out of the hospital. We don't have permission. We got a notice that we cannot take her away. My solicitor told me later there was police, but they didn't have uniforms or anything, and they were just sitting there. You bring your daughter in hospital to know what happened, and you get police.
Various agencies of the state have now been made aware that this is a criminal investigation, the first of its kind in Ireland, into the crime of FGM.
We know that by the following Thursday, so that's 6 days after Halawa and Saeed brought their daughter to the hospital, a Crumlin-based Garda detective sergeant arrives to the children's hospital to meet with medical staff and welfare officers.
After that, the officer talks to his superior, a Garda inspector, and from there, the detective sergeant goes to court and gets a warrant to search the family home.
Later that Thursday evening, a group of Gardaí arrive at the one-bedroomed first-floor apartment on Dublin's south side that Saeed and Halawa call home.
They were knocking hard. We opened the door and they said, "We are police."
Join us in our next episode as the lives of this family are changed forever.
The couple, who are originally from Africa, listened to the proceedings via an interpreter and swore on the Quran that they would not apply for travel documents after they were ordered to surrender their passports.
First Conviction is narrated by me, Ruth Nega.
The series is written and produced by me, Tim Desmond.
And me, Liam O'Brien, working together with the RTE Investigates team.
Including me, reporter Pam Frere.
And me, producer-director Philip Gallagher.
The music is composed by me, Mel Mercier, and performed with Carl Nesbitt, Paul O'Donnell, Niwel Tumbu, Clara Sanabras and the RTE Concert Orchestra, conducted by Gavin Maloney.
Saeed's words are voiced by Steve Hartland.
And Halawa's words are voiced by Isosa Ighodaro.
Legal advice is from Deirdre Ann Kelly and Eleanor Blaheen.
And sound design is by me, Kieran Cullen.
If you've been affected by any issues raised in this episode, please visit rte.ie/helplines. Until next time, thanks for listening.